Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the WIL Talk podcast. I am so excited. I've got Jackie Porter here today. Jackie, welcome. So glad you're here.
I am so happy to be here.
We're going to have some fun for the next hour. So if I can just ask everybody, turn off your video cameras, if you would, just for this purposes, and make sure that your audio is muted. That would be awesome. We will get later into the podcast, we will ask you to turn them back on and turn your mute off so that you can participate more live and jump in and ask some questions of Jackie, because I know that everybody's got questions. I just also want to share with you that this episode of WIL Talk is sponsored by Women in Leadership Empowered, which happens to be my company, but Women in Leadership Empowered is a wonderful program. It's an accelerator for women to, really enhance those soft skills, build community, network, which we're all about. And as we were just talking about dance party, like that's part of community and expressing yourself, but also it's about how we build confidence and live fully as the person we're meant to be in life. So WIL Empowered is sponsoring our podcast today. So Jackie, I'm going to introduce you officially to everyone because I know everybody's tired of hearing me talk. So Jackie Porter is an award-winning financial planner who has been in the financial industry for 22 years, and she has served thousands of people, such a variety, families, businesses, but she's also one of Canada's most recognized financial planners. Her advice and financial strategies have been featured in top financial publications such as Forum, Wealth Professional, Investment Executive, and the Globe and Mail. Many people have benefited from her sound advice, and today you ladies are going to get a clip of that, which is awesome. And she does a lot of actionable financial advice where she has offered that on business conferences, radio interviews, podcast, television programs such as the CBC, Sun News, and BNN. She has also been awarded winner of the McKinsey Investments Award for Female Trailblazer of the Year in 2019 for Wealth Professionals. Well done, Jackie. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And this is how she got my attention. So she is the co-author of this amazing book called Single by Choice or Chance: The Smart Woman's Guide to Living Longer, Better. And Danielle got a little sneak preview before we started the podcast today, but Jackie has got some incredible stories, and you ladies are going to leave here fully energized today. I will tell you that. She was raised by a single mom who unfortunately passed away when Jackie was in her teens, but that led Jackie to learn a lot of really important life lessons about becoming financially independent. And that unfortunately happened at a very young age. And so she has been hungry to learn principles for real wealth and saw the profession as a golden opportunity. And so she's going to share with us today sort of her journey and how she created a 7-figure net worth out of very humble beginnings. So Jackie, welcome. We are so excited to have you here.
Thank you again. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, Vicki. We had so much fun in the pre-warm-up interview before that, we're just going to have a good time. I'm looking forward to that.
Yes. Awesome. Me too. So I just want to bring this up in case, some of you had a chance, or if you didn't, maybe you can do it while we're talking and having our interview with Jackie. But she has this amazing quiz, which I participated in, and I know a couple of you have, but it's the Sex and the City financial quiz. And so if you haven't had a chance to take it, it was in the link when you registered. Make sure you take that before we get to the Q&A a little bit later, because we'll share some more insight into that. But let's jump in and talk about, maybe share, Jackie, a little bit about those humble beginnings and kind of what happened with, your origin story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's one that, funny enough, Vicki, it wasn't a story that I started to share until I wrote my book, because, it's one thing to look back at your past, but while you're living it, it feels very, very different. And it wasn't a story I was particularly proud of. It was, at the time, I thought about it as my survival story. But when I started to share this story with other people and I saw how it impacted them, I realized that it really gave me the opportunity to inspire others, just to learn from my mistakes and to learn from my challenges. And really it started because I had a super strong mom who is an immigrant woman. And she was the kind of mom, and probably many of you out there have a similar kind of mom, who was kind of the mom who said, never rely on a man, always have your own money. She kind of drilled that into me from the really tender age of 7. She always said that to me, and she was constantly embodying that because she had she had a full-time job, she had side hustles. And the truth is, the child labor laws aren't what they are now. So what that meant is I got recruited to those side hustles that she had because I had no choice. And so I just got a chance to see, somebody like her who really had to struggle, but never complained. And, she really taught me the importance of a really good work ethic. And I credit her to probably all the energy that I have today, because she made it look really easy from that perspective. Oh. Anyway, unfortunately, at the age of 16, my mother passed away. I became suddenly single. I had a lot of adult decisions to make at a really early age. So at that time, I was living with a girlfriend. We shared a bed, actually. And I remember just basically working 2 or 3 jobs through high school, through university. That was just kind of the thing I knew how to do, because my mother was that woman who knew how to work. She knew how to hustle. And she taught me that really, really young, not realizing I need to know those skills so quickly in my life, right? And so really from there, I just was somebody who realized I had to rely on myself. There was no plan B. If things didn't work out, I'm the plan B. So becoming really good with cash flow was something I learned really early, because I had no choice. And then fast forward to my very first full-time job, and working full-time for a major company, blue chip company, who offered stock options and benefits and all of those things. And, for me, I was just like, I need to just squirrel away all of the money I could. And I was so good at living on very little that I, maxed out all of those programs. And then, all of a sudden I was downsized from that first full-time job that I had for 5 years. And I happened to be able to build a pretty decent nest egg there, right? Because I was really resourceful. So the same girlfriend I shared a bed with said to me, you need to speak to an advisor about your plan, like the plan to leave the company and all of the benefits I built up. So that's the first time I even heard of the term financial advisor. And she gave me the phone number of this woman that you have to know 24 years ago, because I've now been in the financial industry 24 years. 24 years ago, she was a unicorn. And so for her,
for that, right?
Yeah, for her to sit down with a woman was very rare, ladies, 24 years ago. So I got a chance to sit down with a woman, talk about money. That was my very first money conversation I ever had in my life, because the thing about my mom is we never talked about money. We talked about being a hard worker and, a strong work ethic. That was something she instilled in me, but I would dare not ask her about how much money she makes. That would be a totally different type of conversation. So here I am having my first money conversation. And at that time, I would have been about 20, 26. And she was talking to me about things like making money work for me. And that really captivated my imagination. And the other thing you should know about this financial advisor I sat down with was she was a woman of color. So back in 25 years or 24 years ago, that was even more of a rarity. So to sit down with someone who looked like me, talking to me about money and how I could make money work for me, I just was like, this is revolutionary. I honestly, it was like I had goosebumps when she told me about this. And I just thought, how is it I've never heard this before? And I just thought about how hard I worked over the last 10, 11 years of my life, and how I just didn't want the next 10, 11 years of my life to look like that. So as she was telling me about all these financial concepts I'd never heard before that were exciting me, I just kind of went, this is what I need to do, is to learn everything I can about this. So I asked her, how do I do this? And she directed me into the financial industry. And that's literally how I ended up in the financial industry, because I just needed to learn as much as I could. And I initially did it for me, so I could figure out how to make money work for me, because I didn't want to work this hard the rest of my life. And when I actually started to create my 7-figure net worth, I started to think about all the other people I knew who knew nothing about money. and really what a difference just learning these lessons about wealth, what it made in my life, and the impact on other people's lives. And it was during that time period that I also wrote my book about finances, and I started to tell my story. And initially it was very shyly, and truly that made an impact as well. So it's just, that was really the beginning of my foray into the financial world.
Wow. Wow. How blessed you were to have someone come into your life. I mean, first of all, your mother, teaching you this at a very young age, but then having this other person come into your life and mentor you and guide you and actually open your mind to a new pathway. Like, that is so beautiful. And so what were some of those assumptions made about you in the early days of when you first became, a financial guru, let's say?
Assumptions made about me, I think, the reality is, as a person of color, a woman going into the financial industry, and for those of you who have had some interaction with the financial industry, for a very long time, there really wasn't a very large female presence, right? So I go into an industry where people were asking me things like, whose assistant are you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And actually, I've really been the kind of person that whenever people make assumptions about me, it's always fueled me to just try harder and go higher. And I actually feel like those things fueled me to even, create more challenges and potential success for myself. So I actually thank them. I thank all of the people who just underestimated me, because I love being underestimated.
That's awesome. Yeah. So that's your fuel. That's putting the gasoline on the fire, right? Like, Jackie's going to go.
Absolutely. And I think that's probably true for many fields, right? I mean, it feels like the near recent future that we've come out of. So much female discrimination. Like, every day we open the newspaper, we're seeing more and more of, a lot of the fallout from all the years of women not being able to achieve pay equity, facing sexual discrimination, being passed over for jobs. And I think that we're in a really amazing time where we can actually make a difference. We can get our voices heard, and we can demand things like pay equity and demand not being sexually harassed and discriminated against based on gender or ethnicity. And I think, this is a chance not to ask for a seat at the table, but just show up at the table. That's how I've always
be at the table.
I've always approached this, right? I never wait to be invited to the party. I just go and play dumb.
Yes. Well, here. I'm the same.
Sorry, I wasn't supposed to be here. Somebody please tell me. It's the first time.
Sorry. And I take the first seat, like at the head of the table. And don't
Exactly.
apologize.
Absolutely, because you deserve it. Because there is, because the fact is that we live in a patriarchal society, and patriarchal judgment is a real thing, right? Patriarchal judgment is something that women have to understand. We deal with every day, and we deal with it even from our own mindset. And what patriarchal judgment means is a woman living in a male society is always having to see ourselves through the lens of a male, right? So we have to fight having low confidence, and low confidence sort of permeates everything. It's how we see ourselves, from the way we look to how we see ourselves interacting in the world with money. And really, I'm here to tell you, we're all having to live in that world. And the only way to face patriarchal judgment is to head on, face it, and to take action. So how do we build confidence around ourselves? It's what we talked about. Go to those boardrooms or go into those meetings that scare you, saying, I'm going to kill this, like having that mindset of like, I'm going to kill this, and taking that same mindset around your money as well.
Yeah. Well, and that's partly why I developed Women in Leadership Empowered, right? Is to help women, empower them to take that seat at the boardroom table, to ask for that raise, to demand that raise, to, ask for that promotion, and know that you're good enough to do that, if not better, because we do sell ourselves short, because we've been taught for many years, don't brag, don't put yourself out there, don't make waves. And so such an important message that you just shared. And I love the fact that you're such a supporter of women, and especially with their financial health. And, again, it's another thing that sometimes we turn that over to our male partners to say, oh, okay, he'll take care of it. So, and I know you're super passionate about helping women find that way to manage their funds, to, to protect themselves and, make sure that they've got a bright future ahead of themselves. So what are some of the things that you find maybe like the most common mistakes that you see women making with their finances?
I think the one you just identified is a kicker, right? It's abdicating from financial responsibility and turning over the reins of their own finances to someone else. And it could be their spouse, it could be an advisor, so that's probably one of the 7 deadly sins, right? Is when I talk to a woman about their finances and they're like, I don't have any idea what's going on with my finance. My husband takes care of that. Who knows, right? And when I wrote the book, Single by Choice or Chance, really what that book explores is the perils of abdicating, right? Because there are different ways that women end up single. And one of them is by chance, right? And by chance means that you might lose your spouse early, lose your spouse and become a widow. And then the other is through divorce. So one of the things I found out when I did the book was the average age of a widow is 56 years old.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Like that really was like a hit in the gut. And I remember when the book came out in 2016 and I was talking to women about the average age of a widow being, 56, it just, people were looking at me like I was like a Mars, because it's just not something we talk about, because ultimately the financial industry sometimes sells us a bill of goods where we see these beautiful glossy brochures of women on the beach, walking with their partners. Everything's great. It's kind of like a fairy tale, right? Walking into the sunshine, into retirement. And the reality is these are some of the things that are happening, right? Their partners are passing away and there's no narrative for how do you deal with that? And how do you manage your finances under that? Because if you weren't financially prepared to manage finances or were kept in the loop about what was going on, then you're in a really bad scenario. You find yourself in a bad scenario financially if all of a sudden your partner passes away.
Yeah.
The other major fairy tale associated with that walking on the beach together and those wonderful brochures, we don't see too many single women like looking like a boss lady saying, I'm doing this on my own and I'm good. I'm really, really good. Just so you know, we don't see that. So I intentionally, if you check out my page, I do a lot of single women looking like a boss lady because I really am passionate about that. Because the other thing happens to women in, over the age of 40 is the average or the fastest rising demographic of divorcees are silver-haired people. So people getting divorced in their 60s when they were supposed to be retiring on that beach together, that's what's happening. That's the reality. The fairy tale is the walking on the beach, but the reality is there are many, many people in their 60s divorcing. So again, not a great time, a really financially inopportune time to be separating assets, right? Especially if you never, again, knew what was going on with the finances. You had no idea where money is being invested. You weren't kept in the loop about how much debt you were in, because you're making a lot of assumptions when you think, you know what, my husband's a good financial money manager. Is your partner a good financial money manager? Do they know what they're doing? Often men tend to take more risks without doing the research. So women are actually better investors because they'll do the research. They don't just look at the positive side of the flow chart. They look at the negative as well. What are some of the conditions? Like, what's the long-term track record of an investment that I'm invested in? Let's look at the worst case scenario. So if your partner was lousy with managing the finances, taking on a lot of debt, the worst time for you to find this out is when you're just about to split assets at retirement. So all of this to say, ladies, whether or not, because in every relationship, sometimes people have strengths and weaknesses. You might manage certain things. They might manage certain things. Stay in the loop. Have annual financial family meetings about what's going on with the money, right? Let's have a date night around. Let's look at the finances. Let's put a net worth sheet together. Let's talk about our financial goals of what we want to do next year. Let's look at our family budget. The truth is also people are in second relationships. So it's really an important conversation to have. And truly relationships break down, especially over time when you're not having them.
Absolutely. Boy, you said so many amazing things there. And, like I know several women who have not participated in their financial health in their relationships. And that, what you described a minute ago, that is exactly what's happened to them. Their partners end up passing away, and all of a sudden they're blindsided by this amount of debt that they have. And then they spend the next 10, 20 years trying to recoup from all that. And if you're in your 60s, you don't have a long runway to recoup. No. And so I guess the other big thing, Jackie, I heard you say there is finances should not be a taboo subject. It's not something that's bad. It should be something that's part of your normal conversation, whether that's with children, whether it's with a partner. And can't stress that enough. And having something that's your own even. So if you split those finances, like having your own little nest egg so that.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, that's such a critical piece.
Absolutely. So, as a family, even if your family is like your partner's managing the finances, there should be accounts, because you're not necessarily going to retire at the same time. So, and you might be in a second marriage where there are specific investments that you're setting up for others, like your children from a previous marriage. So consider your accounts to be threefold. Your account, so the you account, the partner's account, so you, me, and we accounts. Right. So that's the three accounts you should have. So you've got specific accounts set up for your financial goals, for the family's goals, and for your partner's goals. And that's a healthy scenario for you to be in, and checking in on how those are doing, whether you're directly managing them or not, is crucial for your financial health. The other thing I was going to talk about is people who are widows often don't know if their partners have insurance in place. And again, a financially inopportune time to find out. You were the stay-at-home mother for many years, and then before you went back to your career. So let's say you're in that time period where you're the stay-at-home mother with young children and your partner passes away and there's no insurance. What financial catastrophe are you setting yourself up for inadvertently? You know what I mean? So these conversations need to happen, and they need to happen on an ongoing basis. Just because financial circumstances are so dynamic, they change over time. Maybe you start off being the person not making the money, but then you become the person making the money. How does the dynamics change in the relationship? How much you might take more of an interest when you're not making the money, or when you are making the money. And if you're not comfortable breaching these conversations with your partner, it's likely going to spell trouble for the relationship as time goes on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Some great feedback there. So I want to dig into your book a little bit. You and I did have a great conversation about your co-author, who happens to be your mentor.
Oh,
and
totally.
So, yeah.
Totally.
So I want to dig into that a little bit, because WIL Empowered is also about community and mentorship and having a tribe of individuals you can rely on. So talk to us about how your co-author and mentor has influenced you professionally, but also personally.
Yeah, absolutely. So personally, she was somebody I met, and I believe wholeheartedly in networking and coming to organizations like this and meeting people there, because truly that's how you build out community. Is you set the intention about creating community. And because of my background, because I didn't have my mother figure in my life, I was constantly seeking out strong women to mentor me. And I probably did it unconsciously, you know what I mean? And so I have a bunch of women who would have been my mother's age, who are like my mentors. And so Jill, my co-author, was one of them. So I met her at a networking meeting, and we just struck up a conversation, kept going for coffee. And she one day just said, you know what, you're like a super successful, strong woman. We're going to do a book about singlehood. That's like, this was her, right? And she's just like, this is what we're going to do. And if you know my co-author, there's no arguing with this one. Just isn't. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to do a book about being single. And truly, for me at the time, as I said, my story wasn't a great source of pride for me. It was my survival story. So she kind of pushed me to get out there and tell my survival story. And then I realized it was just really a point of inspiration for so many people. And I got a chance to sort of see myself completely differently through other people's eyes, including hers, right? So she's the one who's really responsible for us delving into a book because we talked about the fact that there wasn't very many books on single women. At the time when I wrote the book, there was no book on single women in the library. At the time when I wrote the book, one other person, Gail Van Oxblade, wrote a book on single women around the same time I did. But our book at the time didn't get a lot of traction. I couldn't get anybody to come out and, women to come out and talk about being single. It was not an interesting subject to people. It's only since 2018 that my phone's been ringing off the hook and I became the quote unquote expert in, single women and female empowerment. And I thought, the world's changing. It's about time. And, it's about time women actually feel good about being single. And if I can change, if I can contribute to that narrative, so be it. And really, I'm just so grateful because if it wasn't for my mentor, she's really the one who pushed me and really made me sit proudly on that platform.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And just for the audience, I know you and I talked about this, but this is so important to share. So Jill is your mentor. She, yes. She has mentored you professionally, personally. How old is Jill?
Jill's 80. And just because I know I'm actually a confidant, I don't normally talk other people's business, but she likes to be she's very proud about the fact that, she's actually now lost 2 husbands. And so just broke up with her 56-year-old boyfriend. And she's currently in a new relationship and keeps me up to date, probably more so than I want to be sometimes. But I'm always inspired by her stories. And I just think about how she's blazed a trail for what being an 80-year-old woman can look like.
Exactly.
And that's just another way she's mentored me and made me think, here's another way you can live your life. And when we wrote the book, we were really passionate about showing women that, women don't have to be the woman single that, is just sitting there waiting for someone to love them, that they could love the life that they're leading long before they ever leave this earth. And that was something we were passionate about. We wanted to make finance fun and engaging. So we did a financial book that wasn't just finance. We wanted to do lifestyle and finance, which hadn't been done before. And, honestly, that we didn't think about it at the time of it being groundbreaking. But still, there's no real book like that. So, it's something we're really proud of.
Yeah, and you should be. That's awesome. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because sometimes we do get into that, mindset or that narrative of, oh, once you hit, this age, life is over. Or if we're at a younger age, oh, we're too young for this. And there's different ages and stages for all of us. And so, some of the messages you just shared is the importance of finding that community, the importance of finding those mentors that push you to be better than what you yourself think you're capable of, right? Because, and you and I laughed so much about some of the stories that you shared. And I just I want to meet this woman because what an inspiration, right? That life is so incredible and you are in control of that for yourself. You have that power financially, physically, mentally, emotionally. And that's such an important thing to recognize, in all of us at any age that we're at.
Yeah, 100%. Right now she is on the board of her, she's in a retirement home. She's on the board of directors, making sure that things are done to her standards, which I would expect nothing less from her. And, like I said, as far as she's concerned, don't plan her funeral until she's dead.
Yeah. Celebrate now. Celebrate now. I love it. So that is awesome. And I love the book. And again, it's Single by Choice.
Single by choice or chance. And like I said, it's all about, my mission in life is about making financial literacy accessible for everyone, especially women who, because I'm in a male dominated field, I find finances have been very technical and often boring.
Yeah, I was going to say that, but I didn't want to offend you.
It's totally fine. I get it. And it's kind of the best analogy I can provide is it's very similar to because I feel very vulnerable when it comes to technical stuff and around my car. So I go to the mechanic and the mechanic is really proud. And this is kind of how I see how males, and when I say males, I mean the male aesthetic, because not all men do finance, but there's a feminine aesthetic and there's a male aesthetic. So the male aesthetic is to go into all the details about how they're fixing my car.
Yes.
as a woman, I don't care. Or even just as a woman, a man who doesn't care about all the technical, I just want to know when I leave this mechanic shop, will I be able to drive my car and have no other issues? What did you do? Walk me through what you did that means I'll never have to worry about my car for now. And show me the value of that. And that's sometimes I find a little bit missing in the financial industry. We tend to navel gaze. So we go into all the technical things that we've done and we pat ourselves on the back. And, it doesn't really do anyone any good. I rather speak to the possibilities of finance, talk to people about things that they care about, show them the possibilities and engage them and motivate them to get those things done. Right?
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. And knowing what your future looks like, not taking some of that hidden stress away that you don't have to be worrying because you already know where things stand.
Yeah. And that's kind of where a financial plan comes in, because women don't like to be told they're just doing well, like, oh, I made this return today, right? That's probably one of the reasons why women tend to save and not invest, because they're not really clear. Okay, what does that return mean at the end of the day? Will that mean I can retire sooner? Will it mean that I still have to retire later? Like in the context of my overall circumstances, especially because women don't earn as much and we take so much time out of our lives doing unpaid work and we live longer, we really do need to care about how much return we make. But through a financial plan, we can see how a specific rate of return is going to give you a certain level of security. So if I look at a plan, if I look at your how much it costs you to live, if I use a really conservative return, so your investments can do better or worse, but let's just use a return that stays the same for the entire plan, then we can kind of see where you're at now. Yeah. Right. And if we just project that out to age 95, then at least we have a sense of, okay, how long can I live on my money? So if we have a good year in the market, that means we actually could retire sooner. Or if we have a bad year, how is that going to be? Is that going to mean we get to retire later? Let's factor all of those things in so we can have much more well-rounded and more holistic conversations about money. And that's really what I find when I talk to women that they want. They want to understand the meaning behind the number, not just the number.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very liberating, right? It's empowering to know, because then sorry, we just had a little interruption. Can you guys make sure your mute is on? So Jackie, yes, it's very liberating to know what you have and what your plan looks like as you move forward. So talking about how women look at it. So let's jump into the quiz. Okay. I love the quiz you did. So much fun, and just shows your energy and how much fun you are. So what prompted you to do the quiz? Okay.
So full transparency, Vicki, I'm a huge Sex and the City fan.
Yes.
Even for myself and my mentor, when we did the book launch, we did a Sex and the City book launch. It was a cocktail party. We had everybody dressed up. We had Sex and the City in the back. I'm such a huge Sex and the City fan. It's crazy. So that's what the book launch for Single by Choice and To a Chance was a Sex and the City party where we talked about the book. So I always observe the women closely. And one of the things I came to realize as I observed the women closely is they all have financial personalities. And I remember talking to my marketing person about it. I'm like, do you know all those women? Because I told her, go watch Sex and the City. It's one of my favorite shows. And she's a millennial. So all of a sudden she's like, yeah, it's a really good show. So I said, do you notice they all have financial personalities? She's like, maybe. And I said, they all do. Miranda is very, very conservative. Samantha is a lot more aggressive. So we started to sort of flesh all of that out. And it was really my way of saying to people that, again, we can engage in the financial industry in different ways with women, with people, because men like the quiz too.
Yeah, no kidding.
And it's just really a way to engage people around their finances, help them understand who they are when it comes to money. And I think anything that we can do in the service of making people feel like this is something I can do. Finances is fun. Finances can be something that we can actually all kind of get motivated around and connect around. I think it will go a long way to more financial conversations happening, because talking about, are you a Miranda? Are you a Samantha? Like, that's the kind of stuff that I find people get more excited about rather than, are you conservative? Are you, aggressive? Like, I just think that women have superpower for connecting people around money and connection, right? So I think as more women enter my industry, there'll be more opportunities to have fun conversations around money. And I want to do everything I can to champion that.
Yeah, I love that about you. I mean, you're such an advocate for women and helping them make great decisions and just, really embracing that it's not taboo and that, you owe it to yourself to really embrace and learn as much as you can about your financial health and plan for that, right? In a way, so you have the life you want as you continue to, journey through lifetime. Like, we don't know how long our lifetime is, so making the most of it while we can. We've had lots of great comments in the chat. So we've got a couple of Mirandas. We've got, let me just pull up the chat here real quick.
No problem. While you do that, I was going to say, I think for people, finance is such a big black box.
Yeah.
And so intimidating, and women already, as I said, they feel so much intimidation and feel like they're never going to be able to feel confident about money. So anything I can do to help people think, oh, I've got this. This isn't so hard. This isn't so complicated, because it really can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. So just kind of going back to that mechanic scenario, it's kind of like taking control of your money means whether you do it directly or you help somebody, like somebody else does it for you, they're keeping you in the loop. They're being transparent about how they're helping you. So if you're working with either an advisor or your partner, you're having those family meetings to see what's going on with the money. Or if you're working with someone like myself, you're having conversations where you feel comfortable, trust your gut, that you feel comfortable talking to them. They have credentials, because credentials is credibility, right? So, and they have social proof, like they have referrals. So maybe you were referred to that person, or you've gone on their website, so you know that they're real, and they actually, have people on their website saying that they worked with them. They can be transparent about how they get paid, what they charge. All of those things, they make you feel comfortable working with them. You're not leaving that meeting going, geez, I don't feel any smarter.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And when you take that initiative, it really does build your confidence when you know what's happening and you know where money's flowing and you know what debt you have, all of those things. Yeah, we think debt, oh gosh, I don't want debt. Well, no, none of us want debt, but the reality is we have debt. So
that's right.
But knowing where it is and knowing how that's playing out in your life is such an important piece.
Yeah, and cash flow management is really important to women because, again, we're working with less and we do tend to take on more debt. So, just being able to come up with a plan, and that's what financial planning does, to figure out how they can reduce their interest costs, have more money that they didn't have to work for. Like, I love doing that. That's my superpower. Like, I could do that all day long because I've had to do it for myself my entire life. And so I say to people, I'm not special. I've just been doing it longer. You know what I mean?
Well, you're walking your talk, right? Like you have walked your talk your entire life. And the beautiful thing is that you are open to sharing that with so many people. And, I think some of what you're doing, Jackie, first of all, you bring beautiful energy. Like that's just, it's so awesome, but you make it fun. Like I got so excited when I did the quiz, and then I was like, am I really, because I'm a Miranda, and I was like, am I really a Miranda?
You know what? It's so funny. Like, we're going to be publishing some stats later, but we found that so far, and we've had a few hundred people do the quiz, that the top two categories that people tend to answer so far are Miranda and, wait for it, Charlotte.
Yeah, I was going to say, we have a variety on the call today. So we have a Charlotte on the call. We have a Carrie. We've got a couple of Mirandas. We have a Samantha, because you're a Samantha, right?
I'm a Samantha.
Right. So we've got a good variety here. So what would be your, before I open it up for questions, because I know that we've got lots of questions in the audience, what would be like your top sage advice for the women that are here today?
Top sage advice is, don't stay in your head, ladies. Take action. All right. That would be the big one. So decide what your financial priorities are right now. We're coming out of the pandemic, so they might have changed, but take action around them. So if it's to learn more around finances, take that action step. It's kind of like if I want to lose 10 pounds, and FYI, and this is asking for a friend, if anybody out there knows what that's like, I can't just stay in my head. I know that it means I may have to calorie count, go on the scale, see what my current weight is. And that was terrifying, I have to tell you, and then make a plan on how I'm going to lose weight, calorie count, exercising. So take action, because otherwise nothing changes. So if any of the things I said today resonate with you, take action around it. Otherwise, nothing will change. You're not going to build your confidence. You're not going to get any further ahead in finances, and you'll stay in the same place you are, which is fine, unless that's not where you want to be.
Beautiful. Great advice. So let's open it up. So feel free to turn on your videos, unmute yourselves. I know we have some questions. Would love to hear from the group, like any comments, any questions that you have. We're open to hearing that, because Jackie is ready to answer. So don't be shy. This is not the time to be shy.
Don't be shy. We're all old friends here now.
Yes, exactly. I'm going to put us in gallery view so we can see everybody. So go ahead, turn on your computers if you want. And
I'd love to see your beautiful faces.
Yeah. And any questions that you might have.
I would love to know some of the stats. You were going to read me some of the stats of the quiz as well. I'd love to see what people have been saying they are.
Well, we had, maybe somebody wants to share that. Anybody want to share what their quiz results were? Hey, Vanessa.
And if you agree, I would love to know if you agree with the quiz results as well.
Vanessa, you want to share?
Sure, I'm a Carrie, apparently, according to this.
Do you agree?
I don't know which one I would have thought I was. I think for me, what resonated, I'm kind of one of those people, I wouldn't say I'm concerned about my earnings. And maybe that's my worst nightmare, is that I just haven't planned. And it's not that I don't. I think what resonated with me that you said was not that I don't trust someone. I just am not doing it. I just need to get down to doing something, right? Like I'm starting to hit the age where I'm thinking about the future and am I doing it right? And the one piece that really resonated that you said was sort of the holistic conversation. So I actually just left a financial planner. I got just prior to COVID, because I wanted to go in and I said, am I set for the future? Like I don't, and they're like, well, I don't know, it depends what you want. And I'm like, working with someone and trying to, it's hard to understand when you don't know.
Oh yeah.
What you should be thinking about. You've just kind of been going along. I'm a perfect Charlotte. Carrie, I throw X dollars into the thing every month so that I feel like I'm being responsible, but I have no idea what it means. And when you say it's a good return, I'm like, that sounds great. And then a second later, I'm really frustrated and angry because I'm like, okay, I don't care what the markets are doing. What am I going to look like in X years, right? So I think that's sort of what resonated.
Yeah,
with me. It's not really a question. It's more just sort of a comment.
No, I absolutely appreciate that, because you're not the first woman, Vanessa, that have said that to me when they come into a meeting, which is, what does the rate of return mean overall to my circumstances? Like, can I retire sooner? Because sometimes people's circumstances are really complicated. I think of this one client I worked with who, she's like you, she's like, I make really good money, but I literally hate my job. She's a lawyer. And she's like, usually we would be meeting at 7:30 a.m. in the morning, and she'd work until maybe 9 o'clock at the office in Toronto, downtown Toronto, and then go to Hamilton. So she hated her life. And she's like, before the retirement conversation, can I take a couple of years off and travel and have a real life? And if I did that, would that impact my retirement? Could you help me figure something like that out? That's really what I want. And she's like, I haven't been able to have this kind of conversation with anybody. And I don't know how much longer I can take this stress at my job. Life's short. And you know what's so fun about this whole thing is we did all of this in 2018. So yeah, 2018. So she came back late 2019. She took a year off.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so she came back December of 2019. And I'm like, yeah, you can afford to do that. She's like, really? awesome. How do I do it? Let's figure out a plan to do that. And so she came back and then COVID hit.
Thank God she
Yeah.
went.
I might have done something similar.
Yeah, so she's like, I am so grateful to you that we were able to do this, because now I can actually live my life. I have to go. I went to China, I went to Japan, did all the things I wanted to do. And I've never had a conversation like that with anybody around my money.
Yeah, I think that's, for me, that's the most important thing. I really like that holistic and what does it mean for me? So some of the things I always get frustrated in any sort of, it doesn't matter whether it's financing or anything, it's just sort of the assumption, whether it's women are like this or people are like this or your age is like this. It's like, okay, generally maybe you're right, but maybe you're not, right? So I think that whole thing, what does it really mean? What does it look like? And then someone helping you ask the right questions. Because sometimes I also get, oh, well, you're smart. Oh, you've got this degree, or you know this. I'm like, I wouldn't be asking if I didn't, right? Like I because you don't know what you don't know, right? And some of the things, I think it's, how do you dig those questions out that you might not have thought of?
Exactly. And I think one of the reasons for me that I call myself a confidant is I want people to feel like they can be vulnerable, right? And say, yes, because I deal with a lot of professionals, lawyers, doctors, dentists, and they want to feel like they're smart, right? But they also want to be able to feel like, I don't know this, and is it okay? And can we actually have that conversation that I don't know this? And I have to be like really strong in all these other areas of my life. Can I just be vulnerable here and like let it all hang out? Let's have a real conversation about where I'm at. And then really from there, we can like look at ways we can build confidence around that. So no, you got this. This is what you need to do. Or maybe this is what you're trying to ask me, or let's have a real conversation that sort of embodies that. But again, a confidant can't just be somebody you feel comfortable with. Please don't misunderstand me. They still need to have the credentials and they still need to know their shit.
Yeah.
Like that.
So true.
Thanks.
So true. Awesome. And thank you, Vanessa. That was great. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but
That's all right.
you're used to me doing that.
I really appreciate it.
And I saw a couple other Mirandas. So there was Jody and Valerie and myself. Valerie or Jody, did you have questions about Miranda?
I don't want to be Miranda. I want somebody with I want the nice hair.
And the shoes. Come on, let's not forget the shoes and all those awesome accessories on the show. I loved.
Well, it was so interesting because being Miranda, I was like, oh yeah, like I wasn't surprised. I thought, yeah, I'm Miranda. And what I find is I'm not a big risk taker, but I want to be a risk taker. So I struggle because, authentically, I am just not, I want to be safe. I want to know my money's not at risk. But then I see all these other people who are like risk takers and they're on the stock market and they're making all this money. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe I should. But then I get kind of nervous about it. So I do appreciate that it's good to find a financial advisor who is in alignment with that and who won't take you into areas that you're feeling risky. But how do you deal with that? Like, how do I deal with wanting to be like that, but not?
Valerie, I have an analogy. I have an analogy for almost everything. So the analogy for that is, have you ever been on the road and the traffic's really slow and you've got this person behind you who keeps trying to push you to go faster? And I'm like, buddy, like, it's not that big a deal. It's not that serious. So here we are driving and they're like pushing me and then they finally get ahead.
Just last year on the 401 driving to my cottage, this guy like bombs up beside me in the right lane. I'm like, dude, there's 2 transport trucks. I'm in the passing lane. I'm behind one. Where do you think you're going?
Exactly. So all of this to say, they do all this stuff and then we all end up at the same light together. Like he didn't end up any farther away. And that's kind of the way I would liken the ride on the markets. Some people like to take the more complicated route where they're going really fast and they're stressed out and they like that. Some people like the adrenaline of that. Some people want something that's going to actually be a much smoother ride. You just have to decide what you want because you all end up in the same place. Have you looked at those long-term returns? It ends up that you're in the same place.
Great analogy.
So don't get all like crazed out, freaked out on the noise, because ultimately we end up in the same place. It's just how do we want to get there? The people I deal with don't necessarily they're like you. They don't want the drama.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly what it is. It's drama. And it's the white knuckling, the ride.
That's
And it's
it.
like,
And I don't understand those people. Like I said, they push me to try to go a little bit faster. For what purpose? I'm like, we're going to end up at the lights. We're going to end up in the same place. And then I get to, I'm like horrible that way. I'm like, hey, how are you doing?
yeah, right.
Just because I'm like that. I'm a pain in the ass. I'm just full transparency.
That's awesome.
So, Jackie, how do you also help business owners? So women who are running businesses, how do you help people like that?
I think it's a lot of my time with business owners is money is a little more complicated when you run your own business, right? Because there's depending on if you're incorporated, there might be 2 tax returns. Sometimes I find I'm spending time with people who run their own businesses, helping them to cash flow manage, right? Because their income isn't always the same. And they're not really quite sure how to deal with the fact that their income changes all the time. They're not really sure how their accountant is reporting the income. And so they don't really have that really good connection between what they earn and how much they pay taxes on, how they should structure themselves in terms of what they need to take in every month. And my advice to women like that is treat yourself like a company, pay yourself a salary, right? So the salary is meant to cover all of your bills every month. And at the end of the year, just like businesses, see what you have left over. And that's the money you can use to plan for your business next year, to give yourself a bonus for, all of some of the treats that you want to have. And then we can, if we work that way, like look at the last 3 years of your tax return to say, okay, because this is why the bank does that. They look at the last 3 years to see how you're trending from an income perspective. So if we're doing a financial plan, we're looking at the last 3 years of your income. We're figuring out what you really pay taxes on. What's your taxable income? What's your income before taxes? So we figure that out, and you have a much better sense. Like you're much more connected to how much you earn versus how much you pay taxes on versus how much you need to live in retirement. So I spend a lot of time on cash flow management for business owners because I feel like they're not really in touch, and just sort of figuring out things like, benefits, risk management, because people who are self-employed forget they're their business, right? So if all of a sudden something happens, how do you keep your business going? Especially once you start getting employees and you're continuing to build, what does that look like? And, I often say to my business owners, because they've got so many things going on, I'm like the professional nagger that says, you know what, the things that you tell me you're intentional about, I'm going to keep you honest. So if you're okay with working with someone like that, then I'm your gal.
Awesome. Great question, Valerie. Well done.
That's a really good question.
Yeah. So we have time for maybe one more question before we have to wrap up. Is there anybody else want to ask any questions of Jackie? You've got her undivided attention.
Yes, you do.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Nicole.
Hi. Sorry, I'm off video. I'm balancing pumping and being on this call at the same time.
It's okay.
You look marvelous, darling.
Multitasker. I love it.
So my question is, starting financial literacy from a young age. I recently had a very sweet baby girl, and I would love for financial savviness to be second nature to her from the get-go. And I was just wondering if there's any advice on how I can make that happen. Thanks.
Okay, well, first of all, what you should know about children is they're sponges. So they're going to look at you and see how you're doing things. So you're always the first point of contact for helping your child to build financial literacy. So talk to them about money. Like, don't shy away from that conversation, because then you're helping them to build those skills of confidence. So if they see you talking about money, if they see you, building a budget, like, don't be afraid or shy away as they grow to show them this information, right? Like, here's how mom builds a budget. Here's, every month we go grocery shopping. We got a, meal plan because, we're trying to live within our means, because you really want to cultivate those habits early. And you'd be shocked. I used to teach a financial literacy course for many years through the TDSB, and kids love learning about money. So the earlier you start, and start off with bite-sized things that you can teach them with, like as soon as they get to, 7 years old, helping them set up a bank account, putting money in there. There's a book that I have, and I don't know if it's in circulation anymore, but it's called Christy and the Clever Cash Cow. And it was just talking about the principles of saving to spend, saving for saving long term, and giving money away as well as a part of these lessons that you want to teach about money. But there's lots of kids books out there. Start introducing that. But I think just having kitchen table conversations about money and being transparent about that, first of all, allows kids to see that money isn't this endless resource that sometimes I see kids saying, Mom, just take it out of that thing. You know what that thing is, the bank machine? They're like, just take it out of there or take it off your card. Like, that's endless. And they only have that sense because you didn't do what my mom and probably all of your moms did growing up, which is if they don't have the money, they're really quick to tell you that. Yeah. You don't have the money for that.
Yeah.
It's not, I swear to you, it's not going to break them. They're not going to be psychologically damaged if they know that you can't afford everything.
Perfect.
It's actually an important lesson for them to learn.
Thank you. And I saw also Valerie mentioned to buy the Monopoly game, which was one of my favorites as a kid too. So,
and it's a great way to teach them it's a game. But the way to cultivate really good money memories for your children is to be that example.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jackie.
You're so
Great question, Nicole. Thanks. So ladies, I want to thank everyone for being here today and participating, and those of you who got to take the quiz, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing. And if you haven't taken it, please do take it. It's a lot of fun just to know who you are, what character, financially you line up with. Jackie, where can they find you? What's your handles on the different social channels?
Yes. So it's Ask Jackie. If they want to go to my website, we have actually another quiz there called What's Your Financial IQ? And that What's Your Financial IQ is to help you figure out, where you're doing well and where you might need help. And if you wanted to get more information on how we can help, you can go right to our website, and the contact link will direct you to our client experience manager to kind of walk you through our process. So askjackie.ca is my website. We have got lots of resources there if you want to learn about different money issues. We've got a ton of resources. We're always building that library up because that's a passion of mine, is to just really make sure we put as much out there around financial literacy. Awesome. And then in terms of our social media handles, I'm really horrible at that kind of stuff. I know that I'm not quite sure, but all of our social media handles are there as well. Probably the best place to go is our website.
Okay, awesome. And you can get your book on Amazon, right?
On Amazon.
On your website as well.
And on Amazon. It's also available directly from our website. There's the Amazon one.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So I want to thank everybody. Jackie, thank you for all the great energy and wisdom you've shared today. And I want to thank all of our audience for being here. Just to let you know, our next podcast will be on September the 16th. We have Fawn Annan, who will be joining us. She is the CEO of IT World Canada. Huge advocate for women. She's been a trailblazer for many, many years in working in leadership and, just really creating the path. And so she will come and join us on September 16th to share some leadership lessons. So join us for that. Also on September 30th, we have Erica Biesenthal, who will be joining us to talk about how to pay yourself first, which will be a great conversation as well. And I just wanted to thank everybody again for joining us. Again, our session today was sponsored by Women in Leadership Empowered. Please follow us as well on all the social channels. And we are starting our 4-week course on emotional intelligence September the 7th. So if you know anyone who would be interested in really deepening and learning more about how to improve their self-awareness, their self-regulation, please share with them that that course will start very soon. So ladies, thank you. Thanks for joining us. And Jackie, if you'll hang back with me for just a second, that would be awesome. But lovely seeing everybody. Some of you I know, some of you I don't know. So it was beautiful seeing all your wonderful faces today. So bye, everyone. Thanks again.
Bye. Thank you guys again for having me.